Now that we have made it through our informative presentations, I think you can see the connection between written communication and oral communication. They are on the same page. Introductions are the same for an oral essay as it would be for a written essay. The introduction is supposed to grab your audience's attention, give them a reason to listen, and then let them know what you're about to talk about. So I see examples of this all the time in real life, and in our class, every one of you did this to a certain extent. Some were a little bit more formal than others, but I'm listening for introductions, and I heard them. I heard them from all of you, so congratulations. And then going into the body is giving the examples, defining any terms if that's appropriate, and then giving like little anecdotal stories to reinforce the information. And then the conclusion is now a brief summation and letting the audience know what they were just told. So there's actually deliberate repetition throughout the whole presentation. In the beginning, the introduction, you tell the audience what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you tell them what you just told them. And if you remember from your written communication lessons, this was the same formula for something well balanced. Another big difference is not only that the deliberate repetition is really needed in oral communication, but also you're writing for the ear. You're not writing for the reader, you're writing for the listener. So it might be a little bit different, the words you choose, the pacing, the energy, the emotion, but the basic structure is the same. So congratulations, you got through the informative presentation. And now you can transfer those skills into the persuasive presentation, because really a persuasive presentation is informative, but it has a bias. You definitely have to have a point of view as the speaker to send over your message to the audience for them to understand. What else did I want to say? Be very audience-centered. Do not be afraid to repeat key ideas, because the pacing is all on you. You are the presenter, you are the speaker, you are the source. And the listener is just waiting to hear it again, or ready to hear another example. Where in written communication, a reader can reread, but in oral communication, timing is all done by the speaker, so the audience is vulnerable. So take your time when you do your persuasive presentation and come and say what you really want to say, but go through it and make sure you have an introduction that sets the scene for your audience, that your body has enough detail so they'll understand what you want them to do with that information. And then your conclusion, give them a call to action. Let them know what you want them to do with all this information. I'm looking through our students' topics, and any topic you've heard in this class can be revisited in the news, informative by yourself or by somebody else. Victor selected AI for his informative presentation, and I like the way Victor said right away in his introduction that his research source, one of them was himself, because he's been 20 years in AI or in computers, so he is a research source. Tom talked about how to train a dog, and he's also a research source because he's got firsthand experience, right? Megan did the anatomy of a sock, because she's a knitter, and a really good knitter. She uses Vogue patterns. She's an expert, and she knew exactly what she was talking about. So she was a research source. And each one of these speakers also had other sources of research, but naming yourself as a research source is really a good idea, because it builds credibility and trust with the audience. Isabel was talking about dental health, right? She's our dental hygienist student, so right, absolutely appropriate. And I like the way Isabel did her structure. It was very classic. Her introduction, right in the beginning, she said, I'm going to be speaking about brushing, flossing, and how to deal with bad breath. And then her body went right through that, right, exactly right. She first talked about brushing and the techniques, and then she went right into flossing, and then into trying to get rid of your bad breath. And then her summation and her conclusion repeated that. So you really got her message. I just see her as a classic presenter, and she does such a good job. Eldon spoke about homelessness. Eldon has personal experience with homelessness, He shared that in his presentation, and he was incredibly sincere, and what a wonderful presentation. I loved Christine. She was talking about life in space. She's my scientist, and you know what? I loved it because it gets you thinking, right? Can life exist in space? You have to listen to her presentation. And then Cassidy was talking about cats and all animals, but specifically cats and our mental health and what animals can do to help us live more well-rounded, healthier lives. I thought it was wonderful. And Taylor spoke about an organization I knew nothing about, but I think it's pretty fantastic, the South Coast Youth Court. I knew nothing about this, and she has firsthand experience, so she is a research source. Andres, I loved his. He was talking about baseball and 2 activities that happen at this time of the year, the All-Star Game and the Homeroom Derby, and you could just see it in his enthusiasm with his nonverbal that he meant what he was talking about. And it made me want to watch and made me want to be more involved, because I do like baseball, but Andres loves it, so that is contagious. James talked about sustainable water methods, which is our future. We all have to think on how we are going to have sustainable water for all of us. Every time I open up my faucet, I know, and I get clean water coming out, I know how fortunate I am and how not everybody has that. I loved Neil's because he was talking about his job, which is the U.S. Postal Service, and I just liked the way he broke it down, and it gave us a good bird's eye view of what it would be like if we were working for the Postal Service, and already I know I couldn't do the Postal Service. It would be just so much responsibility. And then Macy, I loved it, Macy. Plastic pollution, what a problem it is, and we live on the coast, and if you go to any beach or any island, you see the plastic coming up, and what does it do to the wildlife? What does it do to our precious fish? And there's so much life in the ocean. Our world is more ocean than it is land, and yet we neglect it so poorly. It's really, really a problem. It really is. I remember when plastics first came into the culture, it was in the 60s, and they thought, this is going to revolutionize everything. And the first refrigerator I ever bought on my own, I was so disappointed to open it up and realize it was all plastic inside. Like, oh, no. Dashboards of cars, they never used to be plastic. But plastic has become ubiquitous. We see it everywhere. And those one-use plastic bottles are a huge problem. So all great topics. And these topics could be revisited by you, even if it wasn't your original one, or by the speaker themselves, because they're so good. So carry on, continue with your good research, continue with your energy and your genuineness. This has been a really good class for being very honest and open, and the persuasion is coming, and you're knocking it out of the park. So thank you. I hope you have a good weekend. This is Friday, July 14th. I waited a little longer to see if anybody else was going to be posting up an informative speech. That's so far what we have. Maybe some more will come in. But next week is the persuasion. So we go right from one to another. But you'll see the same intro, body, conclusion for persuasion. And in the personal experience or the brief opinion at the next one, you could have it a little bit differently because it's a different type of speech. And then the free choice. But the classic organization of any presentation is always a beginning, middle, and end. Take care, everyone. I'm glad you're in this class. I'm glad I'm here too. I'm in air conditioning right now, but I'm about to go outside, and it's still hot. Drink a lot of water.